Good afternoon and welcome to this, our first session on planning your project for the Improving Life for Londoners campaign. So if you're new to crowdfunding and you want to learn more about how to build a strong foundation for your project, then you're in the right place. There's going to be a couple more sessions going forwards from here, one on creating the perfect project page and another one on running your project, so that's promoting it, how to get the pledges in. So we're going to kick off, first of all, with a little bit of an introduction. So my name is Sammy Morger. I'm part of the team here at Crowdfunder. We're the UK's #1 crowdfunding platform. I'm broadcasting live today from Crowdfunder HQ down in Newquay in Cornwall, where it's actually a little bit overcast, but the sun's pretty much trying to peek through the clouds. So those of you who attended the introductory session, you'll recognise this example of Leeds Bread Co-op. For those of you who weren't in the introductory session, we're just going to do a quick recap of what rewards crowdfunding is, of how it works. So here we have Phil. Phil was looking to open a bakery in Leeds. He needed about £8,000 to finish kitting out the bakery, to buy the ovens. He was looking for a loan, wasn't able to get a loan, had used up all of the savings that he had on other parts of the business. So instead he looked to crowdfunding to raise the rest of the money that he needed. And what he did in 49 days was actually raise £8,690 from 144 people in his local community. And what that also meant, of course, is he then had 144 customers pretty much ready to go, who were already on board with what he wanted to do and knew about the fact that he was going to be opening. And the kind of things that people were getting in return, so perhaps someone would put in £100 and they would get a loaf of bread every week for 6 months or for a year. Perhaps they put in £20 and they could come along to a bread making masterclass. There's all sorts of different rewards that you can offer. They don't have to be physical things, they can be experiences or just thank yous, really. So that's how crowdfunding works in its basic form. So why do people crowdfund? Now, the obvious bit, of course, is getting the funding, the money. That bit's in the name, we know about that bit. But for a lot of projects, actually, some of these other things are really key factors in them making that decision, and it might be for you as well. The first one, of course, is validating your idea. So, for example, with Phil opening his bakery, it's a really good way of him testing the market and finding out, actually, do people want this to happen? Is there a need? Is there a want for what it is that I'm trying to do? And by successfully raising the money from that community, that's a pretty big tick in that box that says, yes, people want this to happen. The next one, of course, is that it raises awareness about what you're doing. So whether that's a new product that you're launching, actually, whether it's a new initiative, a community event or something like that that you're putting on, it's a really great way of a lot of people finding out about it. You'll find that you're shouting from the rooftops, the loudest and proudest that you ever have done when you're crowdfunding. It also means that those people who support your project tend to go on to be your biggest advocates in the future, because they've been a part of making your story come to fruition, of making your project happen. They tend to be along for the long haul, which is, of course, something really great to have in the bank. If you are looking at additional funding later on, perhaps through a grant or perhaps through a loan from the bank, having a successful crowdfund in your back pocket will be of massive benefit to your application. And there is, of course, an opportunity to access extra funding through Crowdfunder. That's money that can be pledged by one of Crowdfunder's partners directly onto your project, just like money from the crowd. And we're going to come on to that again in just a moment. So before we do that, we want to look really quickly at why do people pledge. And again, those of you who came to the introductory session will remember us looking at this before. So we can divide people down into two main groups. The first one is that people believe in your idea. They think it's worthwhile, it's something that's going to do some good in the world, it should happen. The second group of people is those who want the reward. It's going to benefit them in some way personally. There's something that they can get out of it. Now, of course, the sweet spot is where the two overlap, when you have a really fantastic idea that people can get behind and you're offering something that's worthwhile and of value to them in return. And it's really worth thinking about where your project sits in that chart, in that diagram. And that will, of course, inform some of your decisions about how you present your story and the kind of things you might want to offer in return. So we mentioned just a moment ago about the extra funding that's available. There's a couple of key funding pots that I wanted to draw your attention to for those of you in London. So Trust for London and City Bridge Trust have £100,000 for community projects that benefit Londoners. You can get up to £10,000 per project, up to half of whatever it is that you're looking to raise from the crowd. Another one, which I'm definitely going to draw your attention to, is Origin Housing, who have up to £1,000 per project for community projects in North London and Hertfordshire. And there's lots more funds that are available for you to access through Crowdfunder. To get the full lowdown on all of the funds that are there, head over to crowdfunder.co.uk/funds. Really easy, and you can see all of the funds that are there. Head on to one of the funding pages and have a look at the full criteria to find out if you might be eligible for one of them. You have to then add your project first of all, and then you can fill out an application form and find out if you're eligible to receive that extra money. Okay, so today's Hangout, as we mentioned earlier, is all about planning your project. So laying a really solid foundation for you to create and then run your project. And we're going to divide it down into 3 steps. The first one being planning. The second one, making sure that you have all the key skills covered. And the third one, identifying and nurturing your crowd. So I'm hoping, if you've joined us in the session today, that you'll be familiar with the first part of our crowdfunding pack, which is all about planning your project. If you haven't had a look through this pack yet, definitely do that before going any further. So make sure that you familiarise yourself with this. And you'll actually be able to download this pack directly from the Eventbrite page that you signed up to watch this today. And there will be a link beneath the YouTube video as well for you to get straight there. So what we've provided for you in the pack is a bit of a checklist of all the things that you need to do in order to run your project. Now, it might be that you have other things that you want to add on. You might want to take that list and put it into a spreadsheet, for example, or do it in your own way. And that's absolutely fine. And you'll find that that plan will build and it will change as you're going through. But it's worth getting started on one in these early stages, okay? Next, in the pack, we look at the key skills that you need to have a successful crowdfund. We've highlighted 8 that we think are really important. And again, it might be that there's some specific to your project. Now, as the person who is joining us today and watching this session, you're probably the project leader. We've probably got that bit ticked off. And have a look at some of the other roles, because it can be that you can fill more than one role. You can fill sort of 3 or 4 maybe. If you're actually a fantastic content writer and you're pretty creative as well, you can help to do some of the visuals. So normally we have about 2 to 5 people behind a crowdfunding project. Many more than that, it can end up being kind of too many chefs in the kitchen. And when you're doing it on your own, sometimes it's a little bit tough. You've got no one to bounce ideas around with. So it's worth recruiting a couple of people. So think about your skills and perhaps where you have any gaps, and make sure that you've recruited people into your team to help to fill those gaps where they are. The next bit we're going to look at is network mapping, finding your crowd. This is by far the most useful thing that you will do, the most useful exercise in the pack. So make sure you put a little bit of time aside to sit down with your team and really give this a proper go. So what you're looking to do on this map is map out every single person that you've ever met, that you know you have a connection to, you can communicate with, and you think may in some way be interested in hearing about your project. So this is, of course, again, a bit of a template. It may be that there's different branches and different groups that you might want to focus on for your project, but this is definitely going to help you get going. So here's a bit of an example of one that I've done, that I've made a start on. So I've started mapping out the different groups of my friends and my family, those here down in Newquay, when I was living in France or Canada, for example, those from university maybe. We've got my connections through industry, the different people in the press that I know, and perhaps different groups that I'm a part of on Facebook and other social media. And you can see straight away that actually having quite a big piece of paper is handy. So find a nice big piece of paper and make sure that you've got some time to give that a good go. Again, you can add to this and sort of adapt it and move it along as you're working through these different stages. But it's definitely something worthwhile doing that will make everything else much easier as you go forwards. Now, of course, when you've done that, what we need to do is identify those key people within that network map that we really need to nurture before going live. Don't wait until your project's live to start telling people about it. It's too late by then. We need to do some of this up front. Those of you who are familiar with the pack will recognise super backers and influencers from there. So definitely worth touching base on those. So super backers are people who are going to contribute larger amounts of money to your project. That might be £100, £500, maybe £1,000. It can vary from project to project, but those conversations tend to take a little bit longer. So get started on those as soon as possible. Similarly, influencers are people who can help to unlock doors for you. They're the opinion leaders, the people where, you know, if you can get them on board, other people will follow, the really, really key ones. Again, try and get those people on board as early as possible. Make them feel important, maybe even recruit them to your crowdfunding team, and make sure that they're clear on the role that they can play in making this a success. Of course, your personal contacts, existing supporters or customers, we want to make them feel valued and make sure that they know about this early on. Make sure your social media profiles are in good shape. If you know that they're looking a bit old, they could do with updating, getting some more content on there. Start moving on that. Make sure that your website is ready to start directing people straight into your crowdfunding page. Get out there and do some networking too. Link up with some relevant groups and local people. Collect business cards and start conversations. Really, really key. There's loads more on nurturing your crowd and identifying your crowd in that first part of the pack. So do make sure that you jump on there and have a look through to get kind of the full information on what you should be doing at this stage. Now, if you've made it this far, you're ready to add your project. To do that, just click Start Crowdfunding from the Crowdfunder website. That doesn't mean that you're going to go live and that everyone's going to see what you're doing. It just means that you can start working on your page, which is going to be what we're going to really focus on in that next session. Any questions at all? There's a couple of ways you can get in touch. You can reach me directly on Twitter. I'm @SammyMorja, or you can email in support@crowdfunder.co.uk for any other questions that you might have. Our next session is going to be all about creating your project page. This is my favourite bit. It's all about making it look good, telling your story, adding rewards. For me, that's really the fun bit. And that's going to be 1 p.m. on Wednesday, the 5th of April. So hopefully you found the session today useful. If you need to rewatch and go back through any of the parts of this video, you can do so from the same link on YouTube. It's going to be available here for you to watch back at any time. Do make sure you join us for the next session on creating your project, and definitely go through part 1 and part 2 of the pack before joining. You'll find that really, really worthwhile. So I'll see you for the next time. Thanks very much. Bye.